Now we need to tell GraphQL, understand this very carefully, right? Whenever it take this employee, we need to tell GraphQL how to resolve these projects. Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of my channel. In this video series, we are talking about GraphQL and see how GraphQL fit into our API implementation instead of a REST, how GraphQL make our life easy, right? So last video, we checked and we demonstrated how we can use multiple data source over single GraphQL server. If you didn't watch that video, go and watch that, and also make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. Not only subscribe, just click on that notification so you will get the notification whenever I upload a video. Okay, so now this video I'm going to demonstrate a really nice thing to you, right? So your front end sending a one single query to your GraphQL server saying I need employees and also the projects they are working on, right? But behind the scene, employee records are stored in a database or in a flat file or some repository, and GraphQL server need to take that data, and also projects are coming from a REST endpoint, right? We don't have access to project database, but the projects are coming from the REST endpoint, right? That's all about microservices, correct? So now GraphQL server match these two and using a nested resolvers and get this data back to your front end, right? Understand? So front end need employees along with the projects they are working on, employee coming from the database, project coming from the REST API, but front end guy, he don't know that. He don't care about it, right? He just need employee and projects they are working on. He don't care where it's coming from, okay? Let's see how we do that, okay? So let's start from where we stop, and let's first see npm start, and everything is up and running. So make sure the API also running, right? Remember in the last video we created the API to get the project data. That's also make sure it's up and running. So let's go back and see. Okay, so this is working. Okay, so let's run the query. Okay, it's working fine, and go to the API and make sure API also working fine. Okay, cool. So now this is how this work, right? So if you go to this index, right, as I told you, I'm going to show you how we can make it a production style, how we can just fine tune this code with the separate files, right? So don't worry about this cluttered code, right? So let's see what we need to do. Okay, so I need employees but along with the projects they are working on. Okay, so if you see the data structure, you will see here. Okay, let's go to our data repository, right? Okay, so if you see the data in employees, employee don't have, if you take single employee record, right? So this employee record don't have any information about the project, right? So employee don't have any information about the project. They only have employee ID, right? If you go to the project, the project has a record saying, okay, these are the employees who are working on this project, right? They only have employee ID, right? Employee don't have any project information, but project has employee information to tell who are the employees working in this project. But our requirement is when we call for employee, we need to get employees along with the projects they are working on, right? If it is a database, this is an inner join, right? And if it is a Hibernate or something, still you can use the model and a relationship, right? Let's see how we can do this in GraphQL, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this, change this employee type, right? After this, I'm going to say, hey, I need to take employees projects. What are the projects they're working on as a project array, right? As a project array, okay? So here in the project, since, okay, I just noticed it, since it's only employee IDs we have here, we cannot use this like this. We need to tell it's a int array, okay? So not the project array, because it is a it is not exactly employee objects. It's just a employee IDs, right? So it has to change. So it is for last video. I didn't see that. Okay. Anyway, so now we have project, right? So we have this employee, right? So it says project. Now we need to tell GraphQL, understand this very carefully, right? Whenever it take this employee, we need to tell GraphQL how to resolve these projects, right? Understand? Now query will, from the front end, query will hit to the GraphQL server. You are asking, hey, give me employee, right? Find by employee. So now employee has a property called projects. But if you go to this data set, right? So if you go to this data set nowhere it has any information about the project, right? So now GraphQL's responsibility go to somewhere and get the projects and give it back to the front end, right? So you need to tell GraphQL how to resolve it. Okay. So still, if you understand the fundamental, still you're safe, right? What are the three things we need? We need to have a query, right? So query is employee, right? And we need to have a type. Now we have the type, but the problem is type has project field, right? Which GraphQL don't know where that is coming from. So now you need to, but the third thing, resolver. You need to write a resolver to tell where this coming from. Okay. See, if you understand the fundamental, it's very easy. Right. So now this is the important part. We are going to tell GraphQL within the employee how you can resolve projects. Right. So that means since the query doesn't help, we need to have a separate resolver. Resolver for whom? For employee, right? So learn this pattern very carefully, because a lot of developers are really confused here, right? So to whom this resolver? Resolver is for employee. Okay. So employees, what we are going to help resolve? Employees projects property, right? So now we need to tell parent, and then args, and also data source. There's nothing changed here, and the info. Okay, in the info. So you need to understand this, right? So for query, we didn't use the parent, but here projects, we are going to help to resolve projects. Whose projects? Employees project. So now for the project, who's the parent? Parent is employee. Okay, parent is employee. So we need to tell here parent is employee. Okay, now we are going to use the parent attribute as well. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to help to resolve it. How we can help to resolve? So let's create projects. Okay, so get all the projects. We can get the projects from here, right? So from last resolver, right? So you can get the project, right? So remember, this is the asynchronous query, asynchronous call, right? So we can handle this with the promises, but to make the code less cluttered and to more understandable, I'm going to use the async await, right? So I'm going to put the await here. So that means this method has to async. Okay, we are good to go. So now what I need to do is I need to find what are the projects with this employee works, right? So how we can do that? Here in the project, in the employees, you have an employee ID. I need to see which are the projects include this employee ID, right? So I'm going to call let working projects, right? So I'm going to get these projects and use a filter. Get the project, right? So return project dot employees dot includes right? Employee is which employee? The parent, right? The parent we got employee.id, right? If it is include here, just return that, and then after that we are going to return this working projects, right? We are going to return the working projects. Okay, so we are good. Okay, we are good here. So now what I am going to do is, right? So now let's run and see how this goes, right? So if we get any error, we can come and fix it. Okay, so now let's first see whether this is not broken. Okay, fine. Let's go to different ID. Yeah, it's worked fine, right? So now for this find employee by ID, right? Here I need to see what are the projects this employee working, right? Find employee by ID, I need to get his projects, right? I need to get the projects, and I only need the project name. Okay, project name. So when you run this, now you will see this employees belongs to two different projects, right? So employees belongs to two different projects, right? So if I let's say, okay, let's do some change. Okay, let's do some change, right? So here this employee ID is 3. Okay, employee ID is 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this employee ID 3 to some other project as well, right? I added the project ID 4 Sena Moduria. Okay, whatever. So now we come back and run this. Oh, sorry, employee ID is 2, right? Employee ID is 2, and I need to go and add the employee ID 2 here, okay, to this Sena Moduria. Okay, so I run this. Now I get Sena Moduria as well. Okay, so let's try with a different employee. Let's say employee ID is 12, right? So now they have, sorry, not the project ID, employee ID is 12. Okay, so now they have a Poka and Apoya, right? So let's go and give other project to here, Mandrira, right? So employee ID 12. Okay, so come back. So now they got the Mandrira as well. So now you see how you can use a nested resolvers to get the relational data, right? If you walk through again this example, front end asking give me employees along with their working projects, but backend don't have those information in a single place. What the GraphQL does is send a one query to the database and fetch the employee records. In this case, not the database, is the flat file, right? It's nothing to implement. It's very simple. And then at the same time it send the request to a REST service and get the project information as well, right? So now it has both employee information, the project information, and send it back. This way is very easy to front-end developer, because he has a single endpoint, get all the information it required through the GraphQL. Okay, right? So we are good here, but only one thing I need to show you, right? So if you take this, right? So if you take, let me to take some space, right? So if you take this, here you have employees, right? So I'm going to ask, hey, every employee record, right? Every employee record also I need projects, right? So now, okay, before that, let's run this query first, right? So if you go here, you can see there are two requests going, right? One for project 12, other one for just a project. Why it go a request for a project? Because here we are asking for projects, right? So now what I am going to do is, in the employee as well, I am going to call the projects, right? I am going to call the employee projects, right? Okay. So now you know internally when we are trying to get the employee project, we are sending a call to backend asking give me all the projects, right? That means there is a query, right? So according to this query is what we are asking. Find project by ID, don't send, but find employee by ID, send the query to the backend for the project endpoint, and this one send the backend call to the project endpoint, and this one also send the call to the project endpoint, right? So now look at this. Okay, now look at this. Okay, let's get some spaces here. Okay, and I put a line. Okay, now look at this. So when I run this query, what happens is, okay, see this one, only one query go to the slash project endpoint, right? Only one query go to slash project endpoint. That means within a single call, if you are calling to the same data source multiple times, same endpoint, it cache it, right? So ideally, this query has to send 3 different requests to endpoint, but they don't send it. Instead of that, it just send one endpoint, one request to the backend, but the response cache within the cycle, right? But if I send the request again, right, let's say then 2 requests, 1 and 2, right, same request twice. Okay, so now you can see if you do so, it send other requests, but within the request it won't go repeatedly to the same endpoint, right? That's something inbuilt feature. Okay, so good. So now we know how to write the nested resolvers. In the next video we are going to talk about mutations, as well as clean up this code a little bit to make sure we write the industry standard code. Till that, stay safe, take care, and make sure you subscribe and share the video as well.